Okay, welcome to another Glen Yaps video. This one's a little more personal, and basically I'm following up on some questions asked by some fellow drum students and drummers. Anyways, they asked me what local drummers influenced me when I was growing up, and what got me into the drumming just based on local musicians. When I first started playing, my very first influence was actually, and he always laughs because we're still really good friends, but is this Mike Oakley, a local musician, very solid drummer, and he's a very good singer. He does both together really well, which is not easy. I know I've tried and I get by, but he makes it look easy. Mike Oakley, first met him in high school. We went to the same high school, obviously. He was at that time the school drummer in the band, and I was just getting into drums. So basically, I knew nothing. My stepfather was in the marching band, one of the local clubs, the Elks Club, and so I saw him, practicing drums for that. So he got me into it. But I was always wanted to be a drummer. I saw, the Beatles and the Monkees and on TV, and those bands just were them and the Young Rascals. I saw them on Ed Sullivan and similar shows, and it was like, I want to be like, Dino Danelli of the Rascals, or Mickey Dolenz, or Ringo Starr, and Keith Moon. Wow. I saw a video of him, and it was like, that's what I want to do. Before I even touched the drum set, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a drummer. So, so my family was pretty poor, the same kind of story. So they could never buy me a drum set until my stepdad came into the picture, and then I eventually bought my own drum set, but with the help of my mom and dad at that time. So I saw a bunch of local drummers, but the first guy was this Mike Oakley, and he probably still doesn't believe that, but he was actually my first influence. I saw him play at in our auditorium at high school, and when I first started, and they did this. I've seen him play numerous times because the school band played a lot of the events and stuff. But he had a band. It was an Elvis. I think it was called Teddy and the Bears, doing this Elvis Presley thing. And it was so much fun. It was fun to listen to, fun to watch, and you could tell the whole band was enjoying it. And then he did this thing with a double drummer, where they each did solos. And the other drummer, I believe, was Mark Dubé, another excellent drummer. And but anyways, the two of them did these little drum things, and I was like so inspired by Mike when he played. And whenever I go to these, these school rallies, he would be playing. They even stuck the band up in the bands, not the bandstand, in the bleachers sometime for sporting events. So, and Mike made the best of this beat up old drum set the school had, because this was blue, this was a red floor tom, this was a pile of crap piece, and it was just a junky drum set, and he just made it sing. To me. And I'm sure a lot of other people too. But he just made it sing. And so I used to follow him, the band. And I was always shy. I didn't talk to him. I said hi, and that was it. I couldn't talk to him. I was just too shy. And there wasn't much age difference. I was really shy back then. God forbid that I go back to that. But anyways, and definitely an influence. And I've been friends with him throughout decades, and we've watched each other play in different bands. So anyways, so I'm going to embarrass Mike by putting this video up. Hi, Mike. And so in later years he got into bands where he was doing more vocals, and it's like, okay, that just puts him that much ahead of the other guys, because I know singing and playing, there's a total separation that you have to do to get your vocal phrasing and stuff. And being that I've experienced that with my own bands, I know how weird that is to get the hang of. So, and I will never be a lead singer. Well, Mike is definitely a lead singer, and he's had lots of good bands over the years. Now he just does it for fun, and that's all he wants to do. But he will be the first influence for me. And as I was growing up, there was a bunch of drummers. One drummer, his last name is Armstrong, and I can't remember his first name. I apologize for that. I know it's not Neil. I don't think it's Neil like the astronaut, but anyways, I saw him play at Bellevue Park, and he had this bigger drum set. Anyways, the band was, I believe, called Undercover. And that first time I ever saw this guy play, and my mouth dropped. I was like, that guy was just in a different league. You could just tell he was confident, skilled, and he was just in a different league. You could just feel it right off the stage. And although I ever saw him play once, I never met him. That stuck with me. It was a major influence because I watched the whole show that they did, and it was just a band that played once in a blue moon. They were a local band, and they're all musicians in the band were really excellent. But that drummer just was like, wow. So wherever you are, thanks for that definite influence for me. Then there's a local drummer, powerhouse drummer, Angelo Fogge. And thing about Ange, he's one of these guys that he just seems to hide in the shadows. You know, he's got this mysterious aura. You don't see him out at the gigs too much. I haven't seen him out in years, to be honest. But I know he plays. He has videos. But back in the day, he was the man, and I used to go see a bunch of his bands. And he was in I forget the name of the band, but it was at our old band shelter, which used to be at Bellevue Park, but it was at the Queen Street. The back of it was facing Queen Street, if you know what I mean. And it was shooting forward to where the new bandstand is, or the more concrete one. This one was just a wooden one. And I watched them, and I forget the name of the band, but they seemed like a wedding style band. And this drummer, and she just like, holy smokes, who is this guy? You know, he's like, you could tell he was late years beyond what a wedding band would use. So I was influenced at that moment, and he probably doesn't know this, but saw this guy playing with this band, and I was blown away. So I was trying to absorb all this stuff. Same with the previous drummers, I was absorbing what these guys were doing. Then he was in a band called Exodus, and not the recording act Exodus. So this is way before they were even around. And they were doing Rush songs, and they may have been doing Pat Travers maybe at that time. And I've seen them, I think, 3 times. This one time I saw them at Sioux College, and it was really hot in the auditorium, or not auditorium, it's almost like a gymnasium, and it was crowded, a lot of people there, and you had these blue set of Milestones playing. Anyway, so I was watching him play, and I was still shy to talk to him, these drummers. Anyways, so he would be playing, and I was like, holy crap, I like the way he does this. And he always did this weird thing after this Tom Phil, and the way he would hit this crash thing, and I ripped that off. I've used that constantly. It probably didn't even faze him what he was doing at that time, but when I saw him do it, it was like, I'm putting that in my box of goodies, you know, for use at a later time, and develop that. So anyways, definitely a huge influence. He doesn't play in bands much at all. He's more of what I like to call a basement dweller, and he just works on his craft that way. Still a great drummer, great influence for me. He doesn't know this, but he is. Then one of the biggest influences for me was Alan Localla. He's a local musician. He was a rock player in a bunch of bands, like Eyewitness was one, and when I was influenced by him. But yeah, and I knew him on a personal basis from high school to present day. We're actually really, really good friends. And he was a good drummer when I first met him in high school. He was a very good drummer. And he's a left-handed drummer, but he still plays the way I do, like left to right. But anyways, and he was a good drummer, and then I was influenced when I saw him play a few times, and we got to be friends through mutual friends, and we just clicked. We're totally opposite people, but we just clicked. There's just we love to bicker, and it's like black and white for him and I, but that just works for us, and I'm glad we've been friends all these years, because it's so nice to hear an totally opposite opinion on things. And we don't always agree, but it's that part of it's been enjoyable. Anyways, drum-wise, phenomenal player. Before he went and bettered himself by going and getting schooling done. So I saw him play quite a few times before he decided to go away to school for drumming. And he would say, well, get into this, get into that, try this, and it's like, quick, I'm like a sponge. I'm absorbing all these drummers I mentioned. I absorbed stuff from them, and I use some of that stuff to this day. But then Alan decided he was going to go away to school, and he left for quite a while, because he was living down in the Toronto area. So I was kind of bummed, because he was a good friend, and he had moved on. But after the time down there, he came back, and after all his training and schooling, it was like, oh my God, nobody could touch this guy. Nobody. It was like phenomenal. It was like, what a transformation. So when he come back, he had like tons of music books like this. Right, and I was just starting to learn how to read music, and I was in high school, and I learned the basics, for the drums, and read charts for the orchestra and stuff like that. So I could do that, but this guy could read it like he was, like nothing. It was like nothing to him. It was like reading the newspaper to him. He'd be yawning, and he'd just play it like nothing. It was like sick. So I'm going, okay, I gotta absorb some of this. So he got me into a bunch of books, got me into this particular grip for holding sticks that I've shown on other videos. And that alone, I hated him for, and then after appreciated it, because it was hard to learn, so I hated it. Hated him for it. And he said, stick with it, stick with it. I hate it though, I hate it. But I stuck with it. I'm glad I did, because the benefits are for healthy body, no injuries to your arms and hands. It's just the best method to avoid all that, and then still be in control of the sticks and not hurt yourself. But anyways, so he got me into all these books, and he just kept filing these books. So I would go out, either do photocopies of it or buy the book. So I did that for years, and he just helped me become a better player. And it also helped that he was a straight musician. And I can almost say that for the majority of all these guys that I mentioned, except for Armstrong, because I didn't really know him that well. But these other guys, their heads are still, they're level-headed. We're all opinionated. Musicians are all opinionated. And that gets confused with ego. It's not ego. Everybody has an opinion when you're a musician. You either critique up or down. If you're critiquing down on, or if you're giving an opinion on somebody, and it's like, I don't like them, but it's to help you not be like that, or learn something to do it another way. Or if you love something, you say, wow, I love that band, I wish I could play this. It gives you that energy and strive to become better. But the ego thing, there's a handful of musicians in town that have major egos, but the most part, once you're hanging around with all these guys, you know that there's no ego there. They're good musicians, and it's just the way they talk that you have to just don't put too much into that confusion with ego. It's just basically they do know a lot, and you want to learn from that. And they're actually great. They'll even, myself included, we will help whoever wants to, move up to another level, or, if it's something you want to ask a question, we're not afraid to answer it. That's why I do all these videos. But it's definitely not an ego thing. Alan, definitely, as a player, he's light years beyond most local musicians. The downside to Alan is he doesn't play a lot in the public. He likes doing these Broadway style shows that they have at our auditoriums and stuff, so he's always either in a music pit or behind the scenes. You never see him. You hear him, but his knowledge is phenomenal. He loves Latin music. I'm hit and miss on Latin. Some Latin I like. Sometimes it just, when you have percussion and drums and there's all this Latin percussion stuff going with the drums, to me it starts to sound like a drum set flying down a flight of stairs, and it doesn't hit my ears in a pretty way. But on the technical side, I like to learn the parts in books for Latin. But for me to apply it, that would take a little more patience, because of me not totally liking that style of music. I just find some of it a little bit repetitious. But Alan, he absorbed right into it. So when I see him play all this stuff, it's like, it's amazing, right? And so you pick and choose what you think will help you. So I started getting into all these books that he threw at me, and it helped take me to a different level. Now, in recent years, there are good musicians like Jack Fuller. He's got a really he's a heavy hitter, but he's got, I can't explain his style, but he's very he's got an animated style on how he hits the drums, which is totally different than I see any other local drummers. But solid. He's just a solid drummer. He's a pipe drummer, pipe drums. And I never got to see him do the pipe drum thing, but you can see that technique that he learned is in his playing, and he's not afraid to experiment. Drummers like John Muse, interesting player. He does interesting things with the toms of a drum set, and I think he's almost influenced by the Police. I don't talk to him that much. We hit and miss once in a while, but definitely an influence. Trying to think of some other drummers. Tim Perano back in the day. You don't see him playing much anymore. Definitely excellent rock player. Ricky Dotson, another guy that plays constantly. I think him and I are, we're about the same age, and we kind of come up through the ranks, we'll say. So he plays constantly in a bunch of different bands. One thing about Rick is his energy it just hits you right in the face. Like if you see me play, it looks like I'm having a nap. But then when you see Ricky play, it's like we could be playing the same thing, and he's always going to come across as energy. There's always energy coming off that. It's like a nuclear reactor on stage behind a drum set. It's like you just feel it right away. Poof! Trying to think what other players. But Rick and I come up through the ranks. Like I say, I first saw him play at. I'm trying to think of that Columbus Hall. Was near the Pee Wee Arena, and we were doing multi-band things there. And that's the first time I saw him play, and he was awesome. But anyways, those are some of the earliest influences. I'm probably missing some, just because I'm old and forgetful. But definitely the first one, Mike Oakley. Alan McCalla, definitely massive influence. Forgetting Jack Stubbington. Jack Stubbington. He just started playing live again. He's with a band in town doing 50s, 60s stuff. Jack Stubbington. The guy has perfect timing. He just... Every time I've seen this guy play, he's precise. He's not an aggressive player. But his timing... he just anchors the band. It's like, you're not going to go anywhere. Because he's not going to follow you. It's like, this is my road. You get on, you follow me, or, you get a stick in the head, I guess. But he's the most humble guy, loves music, loves drums. And basically, I love his playing because he's just he's meticulous with time. He just wants time to be right. He doesn't want it to rush. He wants it there, perfect, at that pocket. I guess they call it the pocket. And he's always played that way since I've known him. He loves jazz. He loves rock music. I remember he used to have like 3,000 record albums at one time, and he'd walk into his house and that whole wall was like record albums. And just an excellent player and a super nice guy. Definitely an influence, especially the timing thing. Because I know, for me, I'm a timing fanatic. Just ask my band. I drive them insane with it. You can blame Jack Stubbington for that, because he's the guy that influenced me to be a time nut, to be right on. To be my overplaying, that would be Alan McCalla, for trying to sing and play deadly in the pocket, which I have not achieved yet, but Mike Oakley, because he definitely has the knack for that. I'm trying to think, what other drummers? There were a lot. Mark Mitzi. Mark Mitzi, I saw him play with a band called Troy. And he had these high toms. He doesn't play like that anymore. Like, he's semi-retired. But lots of toms and bass drums. This band, Troy, I think had 2 girl singers. I saw him at community nights when they used to be at the Memorial Gardens on Bruce Street. And I saw this guy play, and I was like... Unfortunate part for him, it was a windy day, and they were trying to put weight down on his cymbal stands. The cymbal stands were flying all over the place in the wind, and this guy just killed it. And he's even though the cymbals are flying all over the place, he played flawlessly. And then I saw him doing Genesis stuff years ago, and he was phenomenal. And we're still friends to this day. But a great player, and another singing drummer, a great singer too, great backup singer. And who am I missing? I'm going to get killed. But yeah, I think that's about it for now. If I miss anybody, there's a bunch on that list. So anyways, appreciate you listening to me yap. Alright, take care.